Okay, so you heard it now a couple times. Let's bring some analysis into this. Jason Unruhe is a political analyst who joins us. Jason Unruhe, the video that was just released, and we're showing it here on Press TV, showing the warning that was given by the IRGC to this British flag Stena Impero tanker. What is your initial reaction to this?
Well, this seems almost like another act of provocation by the UK. Obviously, this is a very sensitive position in the world, given all the events that are going on right now. The fact that one-third of all seaborne oil passes through this area, that this is not the place to be sending military ships. And obviously, the UK is sending this one because they feel the detention of their previous ship was unjust. But this is very clearly a provocative action. This is trying to provoke Iran into an incident when you already have a very tense situation as there is right now, and then you send a military vessel. It's a very unwise move, unless it's one that's intentional in order to try to elicit a particular response. It's very clear that the IRGC has made a very standard approach. This is all very above the board, as it is according to the rule book. It's a way to address and respond to a ship that's taking the actions that the British vessel is right now. So there's nothing that the UK can claim that was being done on the part of Iran in this situation. From the communications of what I have been able to hear, it sounds like maybe they disagree on where the boundaries of certain jurisdictions are. But the timing of all of this and the fact that the UK already knows, I mean, everybody has maps of everybody's charge, especially for an area as important as and the Strait of Hormuz, that it would be that everybody would know exactly where every boundary is. GPS technology is at its peak. They know where they are, and it seems to me, at least superficially from my experience, the exchange that took place, the context in which all this is happening, that the UK ship may be trying to provoke Iran into an action, and that's generally the way it appears to me, devoid of any other information.
Well, the news did come out regarding the U.S. National Security Advisor, John Bolton, maybe to have been the architect behind the plan to use the UK, and it has been said that the UK fell for the bait, but we'll leave that for another analysis. Another thing that's happening here are the approaches taken by both the UK and the US in terms of wanting their forces or wanting forces other than Iranian naval forces to patrol the area and to ensure the security. Now, the UK has taken an approach where it wants a European fleet at this point to come and ensure the safety of passage of their own I guess, tankers, something of which just yesterday the Iranian president has said that the presence of foreign forces does not ensure stability. It's actually, it is an act of provocation, and it may lead to instability. Do you think that that is the case?
I certainly do think that is the case. I mean, nobody sends warships into a trade route without some kind of intention. I mean, very clearly, sending some kind of European force into the region might be more palatable, might be more politically acceptable. It may be more neutral, but I think that the real problem here is the United States and the UK intended to provoke Iran by seizing the oil tanker on some kind of premise that there would be no retaliation. And now that there was a retaliation, now that Iran has demonstrated that they would seize a foreign oil tanker if they deem it necessary, if there is a certainly just cause to do so, that it is something that they will do. And I think that both of the imperialist powers didn't think that kind of thing was going to happen. Maybe they were under the impression that Iran was maybe joking when the president said that he was going to retaliate, that this kind of thing would not be tolerated. accelerated. I don't know what it was the United States was thinking. And now that they realize that Iran is going to defend itself, that it is willing to enforce the rule of law inside of their own territory, places that they are responsible for, the U.S. doesn't like that. And that's why both the U.S. and the U.K. are taking much more aggressive stances on this situation, because Iran has shown that they are not going to back down, that if you do try to mess with Iran, Iran will defend itself. They will act accordingly, as we have seen, all well within international law, all well within international norms as well. And that's really what this is about. This is about intimidation. Now that we do see that Iran is fully willing to enforce the law completely, not being intimidated, these two particular imperialist powers are now sending in ships in order to try to intimidate Iran into some kind of complicity with the very dubious actions that the United States has taken with regards to the JCPOA and other associated such actions, along with its pressure against Iran.
Okay, very well. Let's take a quick time out here, listen and watch this clip one more time.
British warship Foxtrot 236, this is Sepa Navy patrol boat. You are required not to interfere in these issues.
Sepa Navy patrol vessel, this is British warship Foxtrot 236. I am in vicinity of an internationally recognised strait with a merchant vessel in my vicinity conducting transit passage.
British warship Foxtrot 236, this is Sepa Navy patrol boat. Don't put your life to danger.
One of this Strait Impero. The next staff is going to be coming up soon. This is another incident regarding a heritage ship in which Iran blamed for it transporting smuggled fuel. Let's take a look at that now. It's going to come up momentarily.
Sepa Navy warship, this is British warship Foxtrot 236, go ahead.
British Navy warship Foxtrot 236, this is Sepa Navy warship. Motor tanker British Heritage is under my control. You are ordered, do not interfere in my operation.
British warship Foxtrot.
So there you have it. Jason Unruhe, I just want to make a clarification here that these are two separate incidents that the clip has come through in terms of the warning that Iran has issued. Both cases need to be highlighted in the respect that there were violations taking place. The heritage one, which was the second half, was smuggled fuel, of which Iran had cited that to be the reason for it to pursue with its actions. And of course the Strait Impero, that involved a number of violations going against the flow of and the direction of how the ships should proceed in this Strait of Hormuz. The other was that the radar was off. And also there was an incident regarding the Strait Impero where it had collided in an accidental form with one of the naval patrols of Iran. Iran's stance, again, needs to be highlighted here. First of all, that it's not a tit-for-tat move, because there was an Iranian tanker that was seized by the UK off the coast of Gibraltar, of which Iran has said that move was illegal, and deductions were made that this is a tit-for-tat move, which Iran has said it is not. And the fact that Iran has said that, again, the presence of foreign forces does not lead to any type of stability or safe passage. Iran has been ensuring the safe passage throughout all these years. Why do you think then that countries like the US and UK want to pursue having their forces or other countries' forces present in this region?
I think it has largely to do with control. Obviously, this is not a matter of just simply wanting to police the waterways. Obviously, Iran is already doing that job. Obviously, before recent events, there has been no complaints about the way that Iran has enforced these rules, monitored the Strait, etc. There is very clearly an ulterior motive on the behalf of these imperialist powers to extend that kind of influence. I think that there's very much a almost a perceived right from these countries that they can go wherever it is that they want, and that is their right. Other people's rights to their territorial waters, etc., are not something that they feel that they're obligated to go against. I mean, they're very much this is the way imperialist countries operate. Might makes right. As long as nobody can stop them from doing it, then nothing they're doing is wrong. I think this is very much a diplomatic move on part of both countries. Now that they have seen that the rules will be enforced, that they will be held to the same strict standard code that everybody else has to follow, they're not very happy about this. So this is a very much a show of power, trying to demonstrate that maybe even in some terms a form of saber rattling, trying to instigate, etc. But I think this is largely a show of force to show that the United States and the UK particularly will stay wherever it is that they want. I think that this is a response, very much a response to the seizing of the UK ship, which was in violation of the rules, etc. But the UK does not like being held to those kinds of rules. I mean, there's a very long history of Britain declaring their ownership over the oceans. I mean, this goes very far back into colonial history, etc. But it's very much a mentality that exists to this day. The UK still feels that they are the masters of global trade. I'm certain that the United States feels the same as well, and that thus, as a result of this, they have a perceived right to interfere in the waters of other people, etc. But in the end, I do feel that this is largely the sending of warships into a particular area, one that's this sensitive, is one that's intended to provoke and to perhaps use any kind of reaction as a justification for further actions.
The crisis, in a sense, started by the way that the UK seized this Iranian oil tanker, of which the UK had stated that Iran was breaking the law by wanting to deliver fuel to Syria. First of all, Iran's foreign minister had said that how would they know where our tanker is headed to, and whether that was the intention or not. And also in terms of it being under sanctions, Iran has said that we are not under sanctions in terms of the fuel, sanctions that are recognized internationally. It just seems like this maximum pressure campaign is something that the U.S. has instigated and is using perhaps the U.K. for it. I mentioned John Bolton and how this U.S. National Security Advisor has been, through reports, has been the one that was perhaps behind luring the UK to pursue its mission there in the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think that that is the case?
I think that's very much the case. I think that the U.S. administration, or particularly the hawks like John Bolton, do see a growing influence that Iran has on the region, growing ties with various countries, particularly those in very vulnerable situations, as Syria is in right now and has been so for the last 7 or 8 years. I believe it has been the assault on the country. The UK is making certain judgments, leap judgments on where the ship was going, what exactly it was doing. If they did, then if they did know that, why not show the evidence? Why not take that to a court and follow the proper procedures? But they can't do that because what they're doing themselves is in violation of the law. And a lot of it is assumptions on their part. I mean, even if Iran was sending oil to Syria, Syria is certainly a country that is in need right now. They are while they are very much on a glorious offensive against the terrorist forces inside the country, they're certainly not beyond the need of help. Every country needs fuel. Every country needs energy resources in order to operate, and that's what it is that the U.S. is trying to strangle out of them. That's what the EU is trying to strangle out of them with denials of being able to cooperate with the energy sector inside of Syria, which has every right to to be able to operate, and that right is being hindered by both of these power blocks inside the country. One that the United States certainly does go along with, and is very likely, and frankly, is the instigator of from the beginning. They were the ones who, in alliance with Israel and Saudi Arabia, certainly did set up the opposition inside the country, fund the Wahhabists, Salafists, etc., depending on the various groups, Daesh, etc. And this is part of their assault. It's very clear that these forces that they put together inside the country are not going to win. They are very much on the verge of collapse, and their last hope relatively remains with the Kurdish forces inside the country, which are certainly entangled with the Turkish government. So with the proxy military option essentially dead in the water, it is necessary for the United States to step up a more economic pressure to try to undermine the ability of the Assad government to defend itself from the forces that the United States itself created inside the region. So I think that this is all very much part of a much larger geopolitical plan to take as much control, to build as much spheres of influence inside the Middle East as possible, and also to undermine the growing bloc of countries opposed to U.S. dominance. Iran is building, equal partnerships with other countries in the region, Syria, Iraq, etc., and based on mutual cooperation, mutual respect, and this is not palatable to the American empire, which sees all of these countries as potential, and frankly, they see it as rightful client states of themselves that they should use for exploitation, resource management, access to markets, etc. And that's what it is that the United States cannot tolerate here right now, is the fact that these countries are cooperating to undermine unjust U.S. influence inside the region and on their own countries.